Good morning. Welcome into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier on this cold and wintry morning uh, on this day before we head into Christmas Eve. It is definitely uh, an extremely cold morning. So if you're out there on the highways, be careful as you ride around and move around. But we're live, local, and ready to get things going. This is a special edition of the Martin Houston Show. All of those shows that are happening on Tide 100.9 on the radio dial or not airing today, but we felt like it'd be fun to come and talk with you on this beautiful Friday morning. It's a free for all Friday, so we want to invite you to get in on the conversation and let us know what's going on with you. And we'll be bringing in some interesting topics this morning. We're going to be talking more recruiting as a recruiting. We did not complete that conversation. We'll be talking a little recruiting here, but also a couple things happening around the college football world. News around the SEC that may impact what what and how the uh, fallout from this past year will it be repeated? Did Alabama get more competition to get itself back up on the throne as the king of the SEC? As the LSU Tigers got some good news, you would assume it would be good news for the LSU Tigers in terms of their returning quarterback coming back. So we'll talk about that. We'll also be breaking down, excuse me, uh, a couple other things around college football, maybe even jaunt up into the NFL a little bit and see what your thoughts are. Tua Tagovailoa, top vote getter for the NFL Pro Bowl, but not in the game, not named as one of the selections, did not get the vote count from the players and coaches. Also, yesterday had a chance to catch a little bit of talk around the Jalen Hurts situation as he's not going to be playing on Saturday for the Cowboys. And the question is, does it help him or hurt him in his quest to be the league's MVP? Uh, Help or hurt? We can talk about that. But it's up to you. If you have something you want to get to, something topic from this earlier this week, we did not get to flesh out enough, and you'd like to bring it back up, please feel free to do so as we get ready to head into this free for all Friday. Once again, I'm Martin Houston. We're going to be bringing X in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to remind you that this is a day that the Lord has made. So let's rejoice and be glad in it. Take some time today to notice someone, love someone, serve someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. Good morning, X. How you doing, sir?
Good morning. Doing well. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. So glad you're able to be with us this morning. As I was telling our viewers and chatters out there that we're doing this straight up on the Martin Houston radio network. No land radio on the airways today, but nevertheless, we're ready to get things going. So, hey, what's kind of on your mind to kick things off on this free for all Friday?
Yeah, I mean, Alabama finishing up strong on the recruiting trail once again, landing five-star cornerback Desmond Riggs out of IMG Academy. A lot of people leading up until the day before National Signing Day thought he was going to end up at LSU, and he lands with Alabama instead. And news that I've heard circulating that he had actually signed his letter of intent on Wednesday, but just chose not to announce until yesterday. So another big get for Alabama and Nick Saban. Position of need. We talked to Hank South about it a little bit yesterday. Desmond Reese ends up a part of this 2023 class.
Yeah, that's a big get. Of course, one of the questions asked is, will we have two Ricks on the in the cornerback uh, cornerback field for the Alabama Crimson Tide? As have you heard anything on Eli Ricks and whether he'll return? And we'll circle back to Desmond.
I have not heard anything about Eli, but looking at the past few years, a lot of people questioning if he'll be back or not was because of the injury that he has dealt with and things of that nature. But then, I look through years past, and you have a guy like Nick Bosa who had a good career. Then his junior year, he gets hurt, misses the majority of the season. He still goes. Then you look at Derek Stingley, who didn't play a lot over there. So I don't know if he'll be back. Track record of very solid to great play through your first couple of years, and an injury happens, or you sit out a year like some guys did during COVID. It still ended up being first round picks, and I think Eli Ricks fits that mold very well.
Do you think he played enough though? He played as a freshman, but it's been 2 years since he played a lot of football. Now he has something you can't coach as a DB. Eli Ricks to me is a big, long, lean, athletic corner, and you just can't coach that. Sort of like you can't coach 6'6" and 245 and running a 4.4 40. There's some things you can't coach, which makes them attractive. And if you start seeing this happen more and more, is that potentially going to be something that the NFL starts to change? I mean, do you ever see them dropping that 3-year rule? Because the reality of it is you have guys coming out now that the only reason they're not leaving earlier, going back to, I think Leonard Fournette may have been better as a sophomore than he was as a junior, maybe even better as a freshman than he was as a junior in wear and tear, and see some of these guys ultimately get some rule and some change. I'm surprised there hadn't been a play on that yet in terms of dropping this down. But if you continue to see guys not really play a whole lot of football, and still yet the NFL is taking them as the overall picks based off of what they did as freshmen and sophomores. Do you possibly even see that rule changing at any point?
I definitely can see that rule probably changing down to maybe 2 years that you have to go to college, but I don't think you can drop it down to one safely, because the NFL is a different game from baseball and basketball. With baseball, you can come straight out of high school, but you still probably won't make it to the majors unless you're just a unicorn of a player like a Bryce Harper, without being in the minor leagues for 2 to 3 years. So even if you're getting drafted out of high school, you're sitting in the minor leagues, learning, growing as a player until you're 20, 21 years old. And then when you look at basketball, I mean, you have guys that definitely can come straight out of high school. You saw it for a long time until they changed the rule and said you have to go for a year. And I think that you did that to help college basketball, but you're just seeing a bunch of guys that go to 1 year, put up numbers, and then leave. But football is a very physical and demanding sport, and you have to be a grown man to really play that at the NFL level. There's not much room to let you mature physically as it does in other sports. But like I said, Eli Ricks' story is almost identical to Derek Stingley's as far as superstar freshman year, sophomore year, played a good bit, looked good, gets hurt, struggles to stay on the field, and then turn around. And as a junior, and it's almost the exact same story again, with injuries and things of that nature that hold you back and don't let you get on the field. So I'm not saying Eli is as good as Derek, but he's in the conversation. And so I still think he could be a first round pick for sure.
Yeah, just based on just pure talent of like I said, what that stuff you get that's natural that you can't get anywhere else. So without a doubt, would not be surprised if if you were to see him um, jump up and be gone. Would not be surprised about that at all. The other side that is back to the Ricks kid. What is Alabama getting in this Desmond Rick kid?
I think when you're looking at Desmond Riggs, you're getting a lot of what you're getting out of Eli and some of these guys that we've been going after. You know, a lot of size. He's long, 6'1". He's sitting at 170 pounds, and he's one of these kids that really has an extra year of growth left within him. He's a early graduate. He's only technically a junior, so he's leaving high school a year early. And we started to see that some in college football with guys like Quinn Ewers, a name that people probably haven't thought of in a while, Jake Bentley, who went to South Carolina, left early as a quarterback as well. But he has another year of growth left in him. So I don't
at least
seeing him yet at his full potential.
And that's the scary part about the Ricks kid that we just got the commitment from. Most people may not be aware of the fact that he is actually a junior who is leaving early. So technically, he has a year and a half. I don't know that he'll be an early enrollee or not, but if he were to step foot on campus, he would actually be on campus a year and a half earlier than the traditional player was, 8, 10 years ago, because he's like I said, he's a junior, true junior who reclassified and he's signing early. So it's possible that he could be an early enrollee as well. So definitely a guy for us to watch and look at. As we get ready to go to break here, we'll let you enjoy some Christmas music during the break as we wish you a very Merry Christmas from the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. We'll take a break here and we'll be back in just a few moments. Thank you for listening to the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier on Tide 100.9. And hey, it's a all-out special show on the Martin Houston Radio Network. Thank you for being a part of the show. Let us know what's on your mind right here, and we'll be back in just a moment. All right. Good morning. Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show on Tide 100.9. as we continue to move forward, wishing you a very Merry Christmas. Um, as we have this special edition of the Martin Hughes Show with Martin and Xavier. I want to remind you that the great folks at Alabama One will be open today to serve you if you need that last minute uh, banking service for the Christmas holidays. We're open and ready to serve you, and I would love to invite you to stop by our branch location or go by alabama1.org, get that loan application started. If you're needing a signature loan to get that last minute Christmas gift for your sweetheart, don't hesitate to let Alabama One serve you. Gonna have great options for you as we head into the excuse me, as we head into the uh, Christmas holidays. We from Alabama One want to wish you a very, very merry Christmas, and so we'll circle back to the conversation we were having, and so want to invite you to get in on the conversation. We did get a comment during the break from um, Curtis Lewis. He said, I'm hoping Eli stays another year and helps properly teach his brother how to play DB at this level. Not that Saban crap. so, but it was interesting to watch. Uh, that is that is an interesting statement there, X. Eli did seem to play a different technique. Not seem it. Eli did play it a little different. Um, and can't say that I didn't like it a lot. It was similar to what we saw when Georgia played. Uh, what are your thoughts on Curtis's comments?
No, I mean, it is definitely a different style of play. And, I don't know if it's the players now or if it really is just the system that Coach Saban runs and things like that. Because for a long time, we got to see guys like a Minka Fitzpatrick, Mario Humphrey, and guys like that do very well in this style of play. Being able to get the ball back for the offense. And that was the thing that Alabama struggled with this year heavily when it comes down to it. At the end of the day, so it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, but X, I'm gonna tell you, I I don't know that the other guys played it any better than the guys play it today. I think quarterbacks are better today. I think you would see the great DBs of Alabama old have some of the same issues. These guys aren't always in bad position relative to what they're taught to do, from my opinion. Quarterbacks are just better. Quarterbacks can throw that back shoulder pass better than they used to. Have um, deep ball skills as a whole than what they used to. Remember the old saying that the SEC had game managers and the Big 12 had passers. And now the SEC is known as this league that has what, all of these guys who can ball out at quarterback, throwing better passes and better completion percentages, etc. And has that caught up with Alabama in terms of that adjustment? They can just it's just about a give game. It's just about a given that we're going to get a pass interference. Now it may not cost us, but you go back and look at Texas A&M last year, you look at Texas A&M this year, you look at LSU this year, you look at Tennessee this year. You look at our losses in the last couple of years down the stretch. That really hurt us with a PI, and Curtis adding a little uh, follow-up comment. Trayvon Diggs is a perfect example of a player leaving and becoming better technique-wise once in the NFL because he plays for the ball. He's a ball hawk, but he is definitely playing a different technique. And if you think about it, is Eli Ricks a lot like Trayvon Diggs in terms of body style, and is that what we're getting in Desmond Ricks?
We definitely can get that out of Desmond, and Eli is very similar as far as not just ball skill, but body size and everything of that sort that compares very well with a Trayvon Diggs. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think Alabama can do better and will be better with these guys. And if there's a different technique that they can learn, you can always improve on what you have had in the past.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see X where Saban goes in replacing Charles Kelly, um, because he has he had two defensive back coaches. One was safety, one was DBs. Well, he lost the safety coach. We bought in a lot of safeties with this class. We hit on a big corner yesterday in Desmond Rick. But where else does Bama go in terms of coaching staff and with these DBs? We can talk about that once we get past, I guess, the bowl game and all these coaches make their moves or not. And that is a topic we can hit today on this Free for All Friday. At some point, Alabama loses another assistant coach, but it was a special assistant coach that wasn't on the field, who was kind of helping, I think, transfer portal. And I guess losing 12 players, I don't know that he did a good job with that or not. But the other question, X, is let's look at this class and kind of talk through it. And I'll let you lead that conversation. You take it, and I'll chime in as we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think you always got to start with the quarterback, and Alabama brings in two quarterbacks in Eli Holsting and Dylan Lonergan. Eli from Louisiana, Dylan from Georgia. I don't know if you saw the post from a few days ago, but it was a post of it was Caleb Downs, Justice Haynes, and Dylan Lonergan all on a visit to Georgia, and all three guys ended up signing with Alabama at the end of the day. Excuse me. But no, you got two different types of quarterbacks, in my opinion. When you look at these guys, you got Eli Holsting, who's the big body, 6'4", 230-pound guy who looks the part. He looks and reminds me of a young Josh Allen, and I hate making comparisons, but physically, that's who he reminds me of at this age. And I think he has all the tools and all the talent. It just really depends on where Alabama goes as far as coordinator. And if Bill O'Brien says, I think Eli Holsting might be the guy in the future, if not next year. But then you turn around and you look at Dylan Lonergan. He's a baseball guy who I think he plans on playing both for Alabama. But he's in that mold very similar to Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe, a little bit more athletic, can move around. So that's the big question. You've got three guys of a similar type, and you got one guy that's kind of an outlier. So what does Alabama do when it comes to potentially replacing Bill O'Brien coming back, and the future of this offense is really dependent on that.
Yeah, you have to. It looked like Nick Saban doesn't really know which direction. If you look at the quarterback position, because one of the things I disagree with you on is I think we have three different types of quarterbacks, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. And I think that um, the coaching process or who he ends up with the coach coaching this offense, man, I'm telling you, you have Eli Holstein, who is he's athletic though. I mean, they all. I'm gonna give you this: all four guys have wheels. Okay, all four guys. Holstein had some of the highest spark scores ever. He just seen as a big bodied guy, so I don't think he get as much credit for his athletic ability. But he is more of a pocket pro style, gunslinger. Roethlisberger with athletic ability, body build type. Josh Allen is a good, you know, representation of I think what he has. But then you have Lonergan this year. It just to me, that that seems like we just signed the second quarterback because he to me is on the other end of the spectrum in this class. So you have two guys on the other end because he's an athletic guy who not saying he can't play the quarterback position, but that's two different style offenses. And so you kind of put him and Jalen Milroe on this side. You put Eli Hosting on the other side, and then right smack in the middle. I think Ty Simpson is a lot like Bryce Young. I think he is Bryce Young 2.0 in terms of the style of play. I think he has wheels. I think he has good arm talent. I think he's extremely smart, but I don't think he wants to run the ball. And I don't know if he has the body frame to do it. So that begs you, Xavier, where does Alabama go? And Curtis Lewis asked the question: do you think Saban tells recruits of coaching changes during the recruiting process? If if they are hesitant to commit because of the current coach? That's a great question. I don't know if he does or not. And then that's funny. Curtis said the same thing that I thought of that the Mac Jones, even though it was only two guys this class, I literally thought Lonergan reminded me of when Alabama went out and they already had Tua and Jalen, and then they brought Mac Jones in, and you're like, huh? I don't know if you remember that because he is so different from those two guys. And that's where I look at Lonergan. But and of course he ended up being good. So but that is an interesting thing. You want to respond to that question? You think Saban mentions anything about possible coaching changes during to the recruits?
Knowing Coach Saban, probably not.
Right.
Just because of his personality and things, I don't think he's getting guys. I think he's trying to get guys that want to be at Alabama, regardless of who's coaching. Because you're talking about all the rumors of Charles Kelly leaving and things of that nature, and you still get the number one safety in the class. You get Tony Mitchell, who's played corner in high school, but projects to be a safety in college, and as well as Grayson Hubbard, who quarterback, athlete, all that, but is going to be a safety in college. So you're able to still sign three very talented guys at that safety position with all of the rumors swirling around about Charles Kelly leaving to go to Colorado. So I think he's more of, hey, are you coming to Alabama to play for Alabama and play for me, or are you coming just to play for a position coach? Because that position coach can be gone tomorrow at any point during your career. So is it about Alabama? Is it about me? Or is it about your position coach?
Yeah, and definitely something that we need to keep our eyes on in terms of the coaching staff and who is going to be. And so, as we get ready to take our second break of the morning, want you to be thinking through, a couple more position coaches. And did Alabama do anything in this recruiting class that makes you think that they're going to be prepared to rise back up to that level? There's two teams that have dominated college football the last 2 years, and they're both in the college football playoffs. And I expect there to be a showdown between those two, and that's Georgia and Michigan. They play a up tempo version or a more athletic version or more creative version of the Alabama football of 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Can Alabama transition back to that? Did Alabama do anything in this recruiting class that makes you think that may be a direction this coaching staff goes? If that's the case, will Bill O'Brien be leading that charge, or will Saban go out and find someone else? We'll keep talking about it, and we want to add you into the conversation. As we go to break, want to remind you to go check out Overflow Express Wash, overflowexpresswash.com. Wishing you a very Merry Christmas from Andy Phillips and the guys over there. Overflow Express Wash, great packages starting at $23.99 to help you keep your car clean inside and out. That's overflowexpresswash.com. We'll be back in just a moment to have more conversation right here on the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier on this Free for All Friday. All right, welcome back into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. Taco Casa, quality, taste, value under the biggest cactus in town. They've been doing it the right way for 40 years and counting. That's Taco Casa, tacocasa.com. Go check them out. Great option for your lunch and dinner needs, tacocasa.com. Thank them for being a part of the Martin Houston Show. And, of course, they do a great job on their own via the radio airwaves. But on behalf of them as a sponsor of the Martin Houston Show, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas. All right, X, let's get back into that conversation. We were talking about did we do anything in recruiting that helps us be prepared to challenge the Georgia? I mean, right now you have to say, first of all, I guess I need to ask the question, do you agree with me that Michigan and Georgia have been the best two teams, the most dominant teams over the last 2 years, despite the fact that Michigan ran into Georgia in round one of the college football playoffs last year? Overall, over the last 2 years, I think Alabama would have beat Michigan last year. I think Alabama could have and should have beat Georgia last year, barring the injuries. But injuries are part of the game, and the Dogs got them in the championship game. Has Alabama done anything in recruiting to make you think they're ready to challenge the Georgia and make that transition back to maybe somewhere closer to that style of ball versus spread them and fun and gun and hurry up, no huddle, or whatever we want to call it?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at the fact that Alabama really attacked, well, first of all, you have to say that Georgia and Michigan have been the best two teams over the last 2 years because they're the only two teams that have been in the playoffs the last 2 years. And regardless of what you feel about conferences or things like that, you play the games on your schedule, and if you win them, you're in. And Michigan and Georgia have both been able to do that over the last 2 years, and so that's why they're both sitting in the position that they're sitting in. But, yes, I think Alabama has made an effort to get back to that. I mean, you look at this recruiting class, you're talking about heavy on the offensive line. You're talking about the smallest guy on this offensive line, weight-wise, is Wilkin Form did 300 plus pound, 305 to 310 pounds.
And he has the frame to get up to 350 and not be fat.
Yeah, and he's 6'7", 6'8". So you're talking about with potential bookends of him and Caden Proctor down the road at Alabama is a fun sight to see or just to imagine. And you're talking about the heavy boys that we got in the middle, all weighing 330 and plus with McElderry and McVeigh, and of course Olaus Ailing, this big Swede coming in as well, who will have some position versatility at guard or tackle. And then, of course, again, you look at the defensive line. They went heavy on that with a total of 4 D linemen and 3 edge guys. And you get a little something different out of every edge guy that you got. You know, Jans Pierre, he reminds me a lot of a Tim Williams. His build, long, really athletic. You know, Keon Keeley, we haven't had a guy like him in Alabama, but I think the comparison made yesterday of a Myles Garrett type build with the way Alabama ran their defense this year, where that Jack linebacker had his hand down in the ground a lot with Will Anderson. You're replacing him with a potentially bigger version of that. And then, of course, Quay Russaw with the ability, I think, to play inside or outside. If he stays outside, I think he can put on a little bit more weight and potentially be a Ryan Anderson type. So you're getting different type of guys at these positions. And then, of course, James Smith, the defensive lineman prize of this class, I really like him. I see Jonathan Allen. I see Quentin Williams when he plays. Then a couple other guys in Jordan Raynaud, Hunter Osborne, and Edric Hill, who I think will all three be able to eventually compete and contribute to this team. So that's where Alabama's going to really focus with 12 members of this 28 member class is in the trenches, getting down and dirty. And that's where Georgia and Michigan have been able to dominate college football, is in the trenches. And I think that's what Alabama has to get back to, that is reminiscent of those older teams, that 15 team, that 11 and 12 team that really just dominated college football across the board.
I guess my question is, will any of that matter, kind of two-part, will any of that matter, X, if there's no coaching changes? Because ultimately we're going to have to develop those guys, okay? And the development comes in two parts. It's not just whether you have to develop them to maximize their talent, but also develop them to create depth. If you go back and look, when did Georgia beat Alabama last year?
In the fourth quarter.
In the fourth quarter. Okay. So when did we lose? When did we lose our wide receiver in that game? First half, right?
Beginning of the second quarter, I think.
Okay. What happened between the first quarter and the majority of the third quarter in that game?
They wore us down.
But what I'm saying, though, is we were still winning, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we forget that for almost 3/4 of that game, Alabama was still clearly in control of that game, despite having lost our wide receiver, right? But Georgia just kept wearing us down. And then by the fourth quarter, it was almost like we were gassed at points.
No, we definitely were gassed.
And so you go back and get that, and you look at that. So that's one thing. And then look at Michigan this year. And Georgia this year. They did what? They were able to,
They wore teams down.
Yep.
You look at that Ohio State game. It was a tight game, and it was almost the exact same way with the Alabama Georgia national championship game last year. The only difference is Ohio State's defense isn't as good as Alabama's, and so they were able to break bigger plays. You look at late in that game, Donovan Edwards going 75 and 85 on back-to-back drives. It was a war of attrition. And Michigan and Georgia are built to win those games when the competition level is close.
Yep. And once two things Curtis responding to on chat. One is about the trenches. Go get Bo Davis, and the trenches will improve. Couldn't agree more. It'll be interesting to see if that's allowed. If that opportunity presents itself, will the SEC prevent Bo Davis from coming back? Because I know that has been one of the desires of Nick Saban in the past. So we'll see if that happens. But and it took Georgia, once Georgia figured out that Alabama had not, once again, but back to my point, they didn't develop any wide receivers that were a legitimate threat. Georgia finally figured out about halfway through that third quarter that they could totally cover our wide receivers man to man. It changed the game. Curtis saying that they didn't have to use safeties anymore. And as a result of that the wearing down, they had more depth than us. They kind of wore us down. And if you, without proper coaching and development, you don't have the depth to run against a physical team. And that all comes back to coaching once again. So I'm excited about the recruiting. Absolutely. I'm excited about the recruiting, man. Without a doubt, it's good. But I'm still hesitant until I see who will be coaching these guys in spring ball. Once, if there's no additional changes, I'm going to go into next fall with reservations until I see something different on the field. If if the coaching changes, then it may pop up a little positive. I'm still going to want to see it on the field X, but right now, man, like I said, I think Bill O'Brien is waiting on the end of the Patriots season. I think he's going to either get a job or he'll be back with the Patriots. I just don't see Belichick trying to hold on to the guys he have, Patricia and those guys, and Judge. I just hope Saban doesn't pick up Judge as our offensive coordinator from the Patriots. So this fourth quarter edition of the Martin Show with Martin and Xavier.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to see changes. Now, along the offensive line, I think Eric Wolford is doing a great job, and I think you're going to see more of that in years to come, especially once he really has his guys. And I think the guys that we have committed to is some that are already here, some that will enroll in soon and through the summer, are the guys that he wants. And that's the big thing when a position coach can really get the guys that he wants in. I think it can be a huge factor. And, Wilkin Formby was leaning towards Kentucky. A lot of people don't know before Wolford came to Alabama, and that's what really sold him and got him locked in. And I think that's a big impact on the rest of the class as well as Wolford and what he was able to do, even with an offensive coordinator that was questionable throughout the season. And the defensive line, Freddie Roach is a amazing recruiter. And so I feel like you have to keep him around. Maybe have Freddie coach the position he played, inside linebacker. Maybe that's a switch we can make and potentially bring in a guy on the defensive line and maybe move Golden to coaching outside guys, which he had some success with doing that before he moved to coaching inside. So it's just some things like that can be tweaked
to me,
I think will be beneficial.
To me, why don't we just, if you're not going to get rid of Freddie, why don't you move him to coach linebackers? Okay. And our defensive back coaches both defensive backs and safeties, and then you'll have them more on the same page. And Saban already helps out there, and you have GAs to help. Then you bring in a defensive line coach and put him, so you already got Kelly gone, so you don't have to. You now have the position or the ability to move. And then if you're gonna keep Pete, just let him be the coordinator. Just let him coordinate the defense and not coach a position. I mean, I think you have a staff that you could do that with if you move Freddie to middle linebacker, bring in a defensive line guy that's stout up the middle, and we got some. I think we have a couple guys that under Coach Wolford is going to be, is would be huge. Will definitely be dominant across that offensive front X because you look at what Kentucky did offensively um, in terms of what he did at Kentucky. You look at who were some of the best running backs in the SEC. They came out of Kentucky the last couple of years, and it's because that O line play. And you look at our O line when we call run plays this year, we were dominant, and I think we got some hosses on there. And Curtis Lewis saying that he thinks that Booker may be that next Womack type of player. I think so. I also think what's the young man's name? X number 57.
Elijah Pritchett, man.
Elijah Pritchett kind of looks like the Tyron Smith of the Dallas Cowboys. Big, athletic, mean-looking guy. We could keep something on there. The of it is got some bodies to work with. The question is, will we have the right coaches to work with them? Curtis Vito, keeping Pete coordinator. I wasn't saying that's what I wanted. I said if you're not gonna get rid of him, hear my words. if you're not gonna get rid of him, maybe you just let him focus on coordinating and make a way to get a strong defense. Because I think when you get that defensive line taken care of, X, I think all the other stuff will get even better. Linebacker play gets better when the defensive front is dominant and can take care of multiple guys. Pass rush gets better because they can't chip on and double on the outside guy. And DBs get better because the quarterback didn't have all of that free time to step up in the pocket or just sit in the pocket and wait. So lots to talk about. We'll finish up the fourth quarter edition of the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier on this Christmas Eve a show in addition of the Martin Houston Show. Enjoy a little bit more Christmas music as we go to break here. We'll be back on the other side to put the finishing touches on this edition of the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. All right, welcome back into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. And on behalf of Harvest Church, I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We will not be having services this Sunday at Harvest Church, but want to invite you to come out anytime you're free and available on a Sunday morning to come worship with us at Harvest Church in Coker, Alabama. Highway 82 heading toward Mississippi, out there on the right past the airport. If you pass us, you'll see a Dollar General or the Coca Mall on the left, but we're right there, brown. Gray building with the big blue sign. We'd love to have you come join us. Our worship service starts at 10, but we'd love to have you come be a part of our um, services in terms of Bible study as well. So we'd love to have you come join us. And once again, Merry Christmas from Harvest Church. And we thank you for being a part of the show. All right. Uh, oh, let me see. All right, X. Curtis. Curtis giving us a lot of comments this morning. He said, Let's get Schumann as the DC, and Schumann is the co-defensive coordinator with Will Muschamp over at Georgia. Let's get him, and then move Freddie Roach to middle linebacker, and I'm assuming that means, and then we move Pete on, and then we find a new OC. You feeling better about Crimson Tide if that happens?
Yes, I think Schumann is a very good DC. I think he's looking probably for opportunity to be the guy because if you're a coach with Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp, you probably getting as much love as you deserve. Yeah. So I think it'll be a good move for him if that's what Alabama decides to do.
Which guy is more likely to take the offer, Schumann or Muschamp? And would you want Muschamp?
I think Schumann probably would be the one more likely to take it. But I would take Muschamp. I think him, just as a defensive coordinator, is as good as they get as well. He hasn't been a great head coach, but as a DC, guy is special.
Yeah, you have to think with him coming, with a Muschamp type coming, you're looking at a guy who knows Saban's system, but who has also managed to morph Saban's system into what we see over at Georgia. In other words, I always told you guys as my kids that I'm sorry, I'll read the comment from Curtis. Curtis said, definitely would take potty mouth Muschamp. but remember, I always say, hey, I'm gonna pour everything into you that I have. Then you take that and then you build off of it with your personality that God gave you. And to me, that's what I see happening at Georgia right now is Kirby, Schumann, Muschamp, and every other coach, even Oregon's current head coach, all took Saban's stuff and took the best of it and then tweaked and more where they could make it better. I think that's where we're at now. And the question is, how do we get that tweak? How do we get that tweak? Can a Pete Golding, who I know for a fact X wants to make changes to the current style of defense. I know that. Okay. But I don't know if he can push it up the ladder strong enough to make the change. Will it take a former Saban guy that has seen the system and say, "Hey, coach, this is the tweak we've made to get better"? Or in Curtis' words, let's go to Georgia and get bring the Bama standard back to Bama from Georgia, because that's kind of where you are. That's where you have to do is all Georgia did was have a really good foundation with with Mark Ricks, good recruiting, yeah, good recruiting, X, and all of that, and then they brought over a organizational structure and a mindset to that program, and then they made some tweaks, and now they're the standard. Like it, love it, or hate it. Now if Georgia doesn't win, now when I say they're the standard, they are nowhere close to replicating the run that Alabama had. Okay, but if you take a 2 to 3, 4 year window, they're the standard because you can just as easy say that we should have beat them last year, but you could just as easy go back 3, 4 years and say they should have beat us twice. They should have beat us in the SEC championship, and they should have beat us in the national championship. So you give or take. There should have been some back and forth between these two programs. But if you're looking and forecasting forward, you have to feel better about Georgia than you do Alabama. And so we're now in that position where, hey, if we take a little bit of what they've shown us, maybe we can learn from them. Is Saban willing to do that? And Curtis said, "Potty mouth can push it up." but kind of talk to your closing thoughts on. You can take the coaching angle, you can take the recruiting angle, because we're going to still be talking about this recruiting. Um, you know, Next week, and it'll be interesting to see because signing period isn't over. There are guys that didn't sign that could sign. Even we could even have some Christmas news by the time we come back next week.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at the coaching, we were talking about the KPI as far as the recruiting, the culture, the coaching, and the development. The recruiting has been an A+ from day one. When you're talking about Nick Saban being able to come in off of a short hire and get a Rolando McClain, and then turn around and flip that into the 2008 class that really set the standard for what Alabama has been over his tenure here, all the way up until what we've done this week. You're still talking about the number one class, 7 composite, which means everybody sees them as 5 stars, and then up to 9 guys that are 5 stars on other, not in every
various sites.
In most of them,
yeah.
But there's it's the coaching and the development now. For a long time, the coaching was an A+, the development was an A+, and I'm not saying that the development and coaching still isn't very good, because we still have Will Anderson, you still have a Bryce Young, you still have guys that are wanting to come in here and learn and play and coach for Nick Saban and for the coaches that he has, but that has dropped off. Bama's always going to have first-round draft picks as long as Coach Saban is here. Bama's always going to have guys up for Heismans and other individual awards and All-Americans and things of that nature. But to be at the standard that Alabama was, there has to be a change.
Yeah. Well, here's the big question, X, as we get ready to go to break here, and we can talk about this next week. We have a 15-year streak where we've been number one at some point. You have to think that we'll be top 5 at the beginning of the season if we win our Sugar Bowl. Will Alabama streak continue? Will we see number one at some point? And I think the only way our streak continues is if we're standing atop the heap next year at the end. I think if Georgia wins out in the national championship, I think they'll come back as the number one team with all those young defensive players coming back. I think they'll come back as the number one team. And I think they'll run through the SEC again, undefeated potentially. That's what I would expect. I think Michigan will, even if Michigan loses, Michigan will still be ranked in front of us, and they will have a very good chance of running through their league undefeated. So I think that the way the 15-game win streak year streak continues is Alabama has to get to number one. We'll talk about that at the beginning of next week. Hey, for all of you who are out there listening, we thank you so much for getting up on this Friday morning with us and sharing this special show with us. Hey, the station will be closed again on Monday, but we'll be here on Monday morning, December 26th, and all week long leading up to Alabama versus Kansas State. We'll be here doing our show, the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, right here on the Martin Houston Radio Network. Thank you for being a part of the show. We appreciate you guys. Merry Christmas, guys. We appreciate all the callers, listeners, viewers, and chatters for being a regular part of the Martin Houston Show. And remember this, trust in the Lord always. Lean not on your own understanding. Always acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Roll Tide out there, everybody, and have a Merry Christmas and spending with family and friends. And we'll catch you on Monday. Have a blessed day, everybody.